Dejamos ya los mandos de...
¿Esto funciona? ¿Cómo se oye mejor? ¿Con el micrófono? ¿Sin micrófono?
Esos micrófonos son solo para la sala. Si hubiese aquí público, entonces es para que ellos os escuchen bien. Lo que nosotros vamos a grabar el audio es esto de aquí.
Ah, vale.
Eso no
se oye
falta,
perfectamente,
bueno,
no hay ningún problema. Vale.
Vale. Venga, pues dale a la varita y ya... Ya está grabando, ¿vale? Hasta luego.
Gracias. Gracias. Good morning, everyone. We are here to talk about Rupi Kaur and her poetry. We are going to enjoy Rupi Kaur's poetry today because it's Women's International Day, 8th of March. We are very happy to be here after 2 years without being able to celebrate Women's Day, being together, being face-to-face, and even today in Madrid, we are going to have the demonstration at 7 in the evening, so that women will be supported each other and will demand for our rights in society. And we have chosen Rupi Kaur today because we know that Rupi Kaur's poetry is about womanhood, is about the condition of being a woman. It is poetry about mother and daughter relationship, the legacy of other women that we have received, that we have inherited from generation to generation. It is also about post-colonialism. It is also about sexual abuse, traumatic experiences. And Rupi Kaur's poetry is always positive because in her 3 books of poetry, she talks about her traumatic experiences, but how she's able, through therapy and self-esteem, to recover herself always, again and again. And Rupi Kaur is very known. She is an Instagram poet. She's from Canada, but she was born in Punjab, India. And I prepared a PowerPoint for my presentation. Would you like to share, please? I would like to introduce you to who we are here today. I am Zalbidea. I am professor at this university. I'm teaching English literature. And I am honored to have here Claudia, Alea here today with us. She's a representative of students. And, she's also a poet. So we are going to enjoy her reading. And here we have Estela Zalbidea, who is a music teacher, primary children music teacher, and she also writes poetry and composes music and songs. And here we have today
Gemma Huerta.
Gemma Huerta, who is another one of our students here at university, right? Yeah. Could you introduce yourself?
I'm a university student and I study English studies and I also write poetry as well.
You are in which year are you? Third year. Mm-hmm. Good. Thanks for being here. And also we have...
Yes, hello, my name is Evelyn Esosa. I'm also a student of English studies and I'm also in my 3rd year of the degree. I'm not really into poetry, but my friend Claudia recommended me this seminar, so I'm here to actually maybe fall in love with poetry or maybe with that very stuff.
Thank you so much for coming. Then that's great for us because that's challenging for us. Great, wonderful. Thanks for coming here. So we're going to start with the presentation. Please, would you like to share? I don't know if we can share the presentation maybe at the same time. We don't know. We can't. No problem at all. It's just maybe we can share the images or not. I don't know if we can. No.
Maybe they can edit it.
Yes, no problem. Of course. That's it. We can edit it later, of course, in Scene Project. Yes, website. Very good. Thank you very much. So, Womanhood in Rupi Kaur's Poetry is the title of this conference. Who is Rupi Kaur? She's an Instagram poet. She's very famous for her Instagram poetry and her 3 poetry books. I think it's better if I do it. Thank you. All right. So, who is her? She's Canadian, but she's from Punjab, India. And her Sikh origin, her Sikh identity, because she comes from a family whose religion is Sikhism. And being from a religious family, a Sikh family, has been part of her identity. She considers that that's very important for her life, because in Sikhism, for them, family is the most important thing in their lives. These are photographs that she posted, photographs of herself in Instagram, and she became more famous because of that, because she published photographs of herself menstruating, and the photographs were taken by her sister. And then those who belong to Instagram, Instagram censored the images. They deleted them because of considering them not appropriate and illegal. And she answered to Instagram. She said, "Thanks, Instagram, for deleting my photographs. Now I see that you belong to a misogynistic society because you portray pictures of women and girls in underwear, but you reject the pictures I've published, which represent something that happens in woman's body every month. And it is considered even holy in some societies and in some cultures. And it is a representation of a woman's possibility of having children or not." And then we have the free books of poetry by Rupi Kaur. She published her books, she published her poems in Instagram, and then she published her poetry books.
I'm going to take this.
Yes. Thank you so much for checking, Claudia. And if you would like to interrupt me to say anything, you can interrupt me. Okay, if you want to make any comment or any question, you can participate too.
Can you do the same?
Yes.
I think it's okay. I was worried.
Don't worry, it's okay. This is all do it yourself, you know. And then she published her first poetry book, Milk and Honey, which was best-selling. And in this poetry book, as in the others, there are different sections. She starts from depression, and then she finishes with self-esteem and positive thoughts. The first section is entitled The Hurting, and it is about how women are objectified by men in our society. Here is one of the poems. "You have been taught your legs are a pit stop for men that need a place to rest, a vacant body empty enough for guests, but no one ever comes and it's willing to stay." Showing how women are educated to become the whole that men, they go there, but then they leave. So there is a feeling of frustration. There are poems about the sexual abuse that she suffered from her own father, and also how she suffered from having an alcoholic father who didn't even pay attention to her. She was invisible for him in terms of loving relationship, but she was sexually abused. There is another poem here. "You were so afraid of my voice, I decided to be afraid of it too." Showing how women are educated to keep silent. And then I've chosen this last poem by Rupi Kaur's section, The Hurting, which is, I quote Rupi Kaur, "The rape will tear you in half, but it will not end you." Here she shows how you can always overcome difficult circumstances in which all women are victims. Everybody is victim, everybody has been maltreated in our society, but especially women. The second part is the loving, in which we find her loving relationship with a boyfriend, and also how in her life, when she was a baby, she was loved by her mother and father. I'm going to read this poem. "When my mother was pregnant with her second child, I was 4. I pointed at her swollen belly, confused at how my mother had gotten so big in such little time. My father scooped me in his tree-trunk arms and said, 'The closest thing to God in this earth is a woman's body. It's where life comes from. And to have a grown man tell me something so powerful at such a young age changed me to see the entire universe rested at my mother's feet. Here the speaker expresses her admiration for her mother. And we can see in Rupi Kaur's poetry that, interestingly, there is no punctuation, which is something that we can interpret as a way to use her own language, a type of language in which there is no punctuation, because there is a continuous flow of feelings, like in a stream of consciousness, and there is no punctuation and no capitalization because all words have the same importance. There is an equality in words. Also, this could be considered, like Julia Kristeva explained, the semiotic language that women used. This is the famous theory of écriture féminine. According to that, the mother and the daughter have communication, and before we are born, there is a pre-linguistic stage in which we learn mother's language, which is full of pauses, silences, and there is flow. And it is not the phallocentric language that it is learned afterwards. So this could be écriture féminine. And then she explains the breaking. A relationship is broken. She split it up with her boyfriend. And here we have a poem in which the poet expresses, the way they live tells you everything. And then finally the healing, when she overcomes difficult situations, she finds therapy and self-esteem. I will read this poem. Accept that you deserve more than painful love. Life is moving. The healthiest thing for your heart is to move with it, using meditation and self-esteem as a way to solve her problems. And then the final poem I've chosen from this book, from Milk and Honey, is a poem that addresses women's situation as today, in Women's National Day, the importance of support between women and sisterhood. I'm going to quote the poem. We all move forward when we recognize how resilient and striking the women around us are. So finally, sisterhood is really necessary so that we feel accompanied and not alone anymore. The Sun and Her Flowers is a second poetry book in which there is more about daughter and mother relationship. It is even more important. And the migration subject is very present. The situation of her family, who had an Indian origin and had to move to Canada. And there are also poems in which we can find ecofeminist ideas also, the importance of preserving nature and respecting women's bodies for survival. And then the last poetry book is Homebody, in which we find a Rupi Kaur who is older. Now she is 20 years old. She's 29 years old. She's very young. But she's becoming a more grown-up person. And now her last poems are also about the anxiety and the problems that we find with too much self-demand because of trying to be productive all the time, which is the problems that women have to deal with, feeling guilty for not being too productive. And also she writes about her admiration for mothers and the importance of Mother Earth. Now we are going to enjoy Rupi Kaur's poetry, which is the best way we can communicate and we can feel connected. This is the end of my conference, and now it's your turn for reading poetry. And also you can make a comment. You can add anything you want about any poem, why you like it, or anything you want to say. Claudia Alea is going to be the first one to read some Rupi Kaur's poems that she's chosen, especially for today.
So I will place the camera first.
Okay, so I'm going to read 2 poems from The Sun and Her Flowers, and 3 from Homebody, the third book that she published. The first one is titled Time. Rise, said the moon, and the new day came. The show must go on, said the sun. Life does not stop for anybody. It drags you by the legs, whether you want to move forward or not. That is a gift. Life will force you to forget how you long for them. Your skin will shed till there is not a single part of you left they've touched. Your eyes finally, just your eyes, not the eyes which held them. You will make it to the end of what is only the beginning. Go on, open the door for the rest of it. The next one is titled Self-Love. First, I went for my words, the I can'ts, I won'ts, I am not good enoughs. I light them up and shot them dead. Then I went for my thoughts, invisible and everywhere. There was no time to gather them one by one. I had to wash them out. I wove a linen cloth out of my hair, soaked in a bowl of mint and lemon water, carried it in my mouth as I climbed out my braid to the back of my head. Down on my knees, I began to wipe my mind clean. It took 21 days. My knees first, but I did not care. I was not given the breath in my lungs to talk it up. I would scrub the self-hate of the bone till it exposed blood. This one is from Homebody, and it's titled Empty. I walked off stage when the show was over and played for the misery to stop eating me alive. I was sick and pretending not to be sick. At least performing kept me moving. Coming home to an empty apartment was worse. Without work, I had nothing to look forward to. I would sink into the depression for months. I've passed out from the grief, eyes open, mind lost in another dimension. Write the book, they said. Get back on the road again. What's taking you so long? This one does not have any title. There are whole blackouts in some of the years I have lived. My therapist says our minds erase trauma to help us move on. But every experience I've had is memorized in my flesh. Even if my mind forgets, my body remembers. My body is a map of my life. My body works what it's been through. My body signals the alarms when it thinks danger is coming. And suddenly, the hungry little demons from my past come raging out of my flesh, screaming, "Don't you forget us. Don't you ever try to leave us behind again." And the last one, it's called Productivity Anxiety, and it's about the theme I mentioned before, about not being enough in society. I have this productivity anxiety that everyone else is working harder than me, and I'm going to be left behind because I'm not working fast enough, long enough, and I'm wasting my time. I don't sit down to have breakfast. I take it to go. I call my mother when I'm free, otherwise it takes too long to have a conversation. I put off everything that won't bring me closer to my dreams, as if the things I'm putting off are not the dream themselves. Isn't the dream that I have a mother to call and a table to eat breakfast at? Instead, I'm lost in the sick need to optimize every hour of my day, so I'm improving in some way, making money in some way, advancing my career in some way, because that's what it takes to be successful, right? I excavate my life, package it up, sell it to the world, and what they ask for more. And when they ask for more, I dig through bones, trying to write poems. Capitalism got inside my head and made me think my only value is how much I produce for people to consume. Capitalism got inside my head and made me think I am worth as long as I'm working. I learned impatience from it. I learned self-doubt from it. Learned to plant seeds in the ground and expect flowers the next day. But magic doesn't work like that. Magic doesn't happen because I figure out how to pack more work in a day. Magic moves by the laws of nature. Nature has its own clock. Magic happens when we play, when we escape, daydream, and imagine what's where everything with the power to fulfill us is waiting on its needs for us. Once I've selected, I decided to choose this poem. Well, I tried to end on a nice note with the last one, even if it's a bit sad too. But at least it ends with hope in nature. And I chose these ones because I think they are the poems that most resonate with me. Because I feel more or less like this. Sometimes I think like that all of us do. I decided to choose them instead of the first book, as what you said, that she has been, I wouldn't say necessarily maturing the poetry, but she moved to other topics. And I've also decided to add my own punctuations in order to perform them. Because I think that in this way I can make the poems mine, that I think is, at least when I write, I want people to feel whenever they read my poems as their own, so everyone can make the poems as they feel them. So I decided to add my own punctuation because of that.
That's such an interesting idea, isn't it? Could you develop it a little bit more? Like, what's your idea that the reader participates in the part of the creative process? Could you explain a little bit? Like, with your poems, what do you expect them to do exactly?
Yes.
Adding punctuation or what?
Well, I don't use a lot of punctuation either, because I want the rhythm to be freer when you read it, so you can decide the tempo, for example, the speed. And regarding the topics, I like to write more ambiguous things in order to people are able to project themselves in the text. So you can interpret them. It's not need to. I think there's no need to interpret the text as the writer wants you to interpret them. So that's what I think.
It sounds great. Wonderful. Thank you, Claudia. And now Gemma Huertas.
Yeah.
Gemma Huertas, right? Huerta. Gemma Huerta.
One thing about what Claudia said. Perdón. Pero lo voy buscando yo. About what Claudia said, I think that beautiful that the poet can write one poem, but it is never read the same by different readers, because each one uses the poem and their own livings and experiences to interpret it, and that is the magic of poetry, I guess, that it is very subjective, and it allows you to explore the writers are writing, but also yourself. And I don't know, I like thinking about poetry this way. So I have chosen several short poems, and I will proceed to read this one. is entitled An Appreciative.
Pues entonces,
Vale.
es el enfoque de la cámara.
Vale. When snow falls, I long for grass.
Pero perdón, no vuelve a empezar con el título y todo, porque
Vale.
nos dijeron que mejor no usar las imágenes de desplazamiento, entonces puedes volver a decir.
Sí, claro, perdona.
No.
So this one is called Unappreciative, and it goes like, when snow falls, I long for grass. When grass grows, I walk all over it. When leaves change color, I beg for flowers. When flowers bloom, I pick them. I think it summarizes the essence of not taking into account what you currently have in life, and then longing for it or wishing for something different, and not appreciate it when it comes, and then again wishing for something different once again, not enjoying life itself. This one is called Legacy. I stand on the sacrifices of a million women before me, thinking, what can I do to make this mountain taller, so the women after me can see farther. I don't know, I really like this poem. It's one of my favorite ones.
Mine too.
Of her, because it is the essence of feminism, I guess. Trying to make the world better for ourselves, but also for the women to come, so that they have it easier than us. And it recalls about past women who were not silent and made things easier for us, so that we can also make things easier for future women. So, and this is the final one I have chosen. It's called Pretend. In order to fall asleep, I have to imagine your body crooked behind mine, spoon laden into spoon, till I hear your breath. I have to recite your name till you answer, and we have a conversation. Only then can my mind drift off to sleep. And I also really like this one because I think her poetry is very straightforward, which is really great, because it's fine to interpret the readings and etc. and see the mechanisms used, but in the case of her poetry, she is saying straightforward what she wants to say, and then you can interpret it, but she's not vague about it, and it allows you to draw a picture of the poetry in your mind and understand what she's saying. And because she talks about very common issues in society, for instance, you can relate to it, which is also really really good for the reader, so that they can feel represented in some way, I guess, like they are seeing their feelings or their livings represented in literature. So that's all.
Thank you very much, Gemma Huerta.
Thank you.
I think that's one of the most beautiful things of Rupi Kaur's poetry, that she makes the reader feel identified with what he writes, what she writes. And now Estela Zalbidea's turn to read some Rupi Kaur's poems.
I'm going to read a poem.
Ahora sí.
I'm going to read a poem from the book Milk and Honey of Rupi Kaur too. Okay. It's in your blood, it's in my veins. Tell me, how am I supposed to forget the therapist's faces, the doll in front of you? It is the size of girls, your uncle's light touching point to where his hands were. You point to the stop between his legs, the one he fingered out of you like a confession. How are you feeling? You pull the lamp in your throat out with your teeth and say, fine, none, really, midweek sessions. He was supposed to be the first male love of your life. You still search for him everywhere. Father, you were so afraid of my voice. I decided to be afraid of it too. I like so much this poem because she's describing the relationship with her father. She said that he's the first love of her. It's so interesting because when you are small, when you're a child, even when you are a teenager, you have your father is your first male known, and it will probably mark the rest of your life. It's so intensive. I like so much this writer, this woman writer, and she describes a lot of feelings that we have like woman, like to be a woman, and she's probably inspired in her whole life, and it's intriguing, and you can't stop reading. You want to read more and more because it's very easy to understand the feelings of her. Yes. That's all.
Thank you very much, Estela Zalbidea. It is true that Rupi Kaur is a very brave poet. She talks about topics that can be disturbing for the readers, but she's able to do it in a very impressive, shocking, but not sensationalist way. She always accompanies with illustrations, and there is always comfort in the reader because there is always a positive ending in her books. Now we are going to have our last reader. Could you tell me your name again?
Evelyn Esosa. Well, Evelyn. Just Evelyn.
Evelyn?
Yes.
Thanks for coming, Evelyn.
Okay. So as I said before, I'm not really, well, I didn't think I was really into poetry, but this author does some poems that are worth reading, I would say, because as I think all of us have mentioned before, they're actually about topics that maybe bothers society. They're not random topics like that, they're like day-to-day topics. So there are a few poems that really captured my attention. One of them has already been read, which was Pretend. And also, like I mentioned before, and I'm going to mention again, I'm not really into poetry, so maybe the reading that I give it is a different one. But as Claudia mentioned before, we're different people. We give each poem different readings. So I would like to start with this one. I don't think it has a title. You might have, but I don't see it. It's in the book The Sun and Her Flowers. So it starts. You left, and I waited you still. Yet I deserve someone who was willing to stay. I spend days in bed deliberated by loss. I attempt to cry you back, but the water is done, and still you have not returned. I pinch my belly till it bleeds, have lost count of the day. Sun becomes moon, and moon becomes sun, and I become ghost. A dozen different thoughts tear through me each second. You must be on your way, perhaps it's best if you're not. I'm okay, no. I'm angry, yes. I hate you, maybe. I can't move on. I will. I forgive you. I want to trip my hair out, and over and over and over again, till my mind exhausts itself into a silence. So, I relate this to love, to when you have expectations with someone, and they just don't get to the expectations that you had in your mind. So you are like disappointed. You're like, oh, but I want you back. Like, I want you to fulfill these expectations that I had of you. And exactly, they don't. They're not able. But you're like, maybe it will happen. Let me just wait, sit back, and wait. Maybe it will come back. As she says in the part, there are no more tears to cry, but you're not back. Like, what's happening, you know? So I give it that reading related to love. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the reading I give it. Another one also related to this topic of love, it will be, it isn't what we left behind that breaks me. It is what we could have built had we stayed. Sorry. So that's what I'm trying to say. You had expectations with someone. Maybe it's not working, but you staying because maybe in the close future you will get to the expectations, right? It isn't what we left behind that breaks me. It is what we could have built had we stayed. So what is breaking me, what is making me sad is that it didn't fulfill the expectations that I have. And that's also something that I see currently in society. Like, people expect so much of others and they become disappointed when it doesn't happen. That's why I do believe that you should not have expectations. Just let it happen, and if it surprises you, well, better for you. But to have expectations and those expectations not being fulfilled destroys you. It destroys yourself. And that's not good. So yes, I really did enjoy this author, Rupi Kaur. I'm looking forward to reading more of her poetry because I really do like them as they're related to topics of nowadays of society. So yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us, Evelyn. Before we finish, we are running out of time. We are going to. Would you like? Well, I invite you to do it. Would you like to read a poem, all of us at the same time? Yes.
Oh, yes,
this is going to be. Yeah. Sorry.
From my point of view, yes.
No, I mean at the same time.
Yes, I
Do you agree? Ah, good. Thank you very much. Do you agree with reading at the same time? It's going to be so spectacular. Do you have any poem that you think it's the best one to read all of us together? I'm thinking about just the last poem of Homebody, as it is the last poem that we have from the last book, so that it's like an ending of what she has written for the moment, and also it is addressed to the reader, which of you, so to the audience, and so that I think it's a good poem to finish. We're going to read together. Very good, great, wonderful. So yes, we're gonna start. Yes. Okay. Very good.
I think this frame is
very good. So I will use my fingers, right? And one, yeah, or say 1, 2, 3, 4, right? I think it's the best. 1, 2, 3.
Silly girl, little angel, little devil, so oblivious too. Being the miracle worker, you are the mother, the magician, the master of your life.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, yes. I would embrace you if we weren't living a pandemic. Thank you very much for coming. It's been so beautiful.
Thank you for organizing the activity.
Oh, thanks for coming. Gracias por venir, qué ilusión. Evelyn, ¿en qué año estás en la carrera?
En tercero.
En tercero. ¿Y de dónde eres?
De aquí, pero mis padres son de Nigeria.
Ah, mira, como Chimamanda en Cocheadichi,
Sí,
¿te
justo.
gusta?
Sí, Chimamanda sobre todo.
Claro, claro que sí, qué bien, qué maravilla. Bueno, me ha faltado decir, pero bueno, lo decimos ahora, lo de la Semana de las Letras, que vas a hacer una actividad y para que cuéntaselo a ellas, ¿no? O ellas lo saben ya. ¿Lo has contado a ellas? Cuéntaselo.
Que voy a hacer como una charla, medio taller sobre poesía efrástica, porque lo vimos un poco en una asignatura, en la de romanticismo. Sí. Y creo que es muy interesante. Hay muchos papers sobre cómo sirve sobre todo para el aprendizaje del inglés y para el desarrollo de la imaginación y eso, y sobre todo para niños, pero bueno, también creo que sirve para nosotros. Y luego se pueden presentar o sea, mi idea es como hacer un medio taller proponiendo algunos cuadros y algunos ejemplos, tanto en español como en inglés, y luego que se puedan presentar los poemas al journal
la revista que tenemos que tiene una parte artística, la revista que tenemos de la universidad, que se pueden publicar ahí.
Sí, ¿a qué hora y dónde es?
No lo sé todavía.
Te lo diré porque estamos ya a puntito, ¿verdad? El domingo creo que se acaba el plazo para que enviemos propuestas, ¿verdad? Creo que es este domingo, creo,
Pues no me acuerdo.
Creo que sí, que lo tengo apuntado en la agenda, por si queréis hacer algo de la Semana de las Letras, porque Claudia va a hacer esto y yo creo que va a ser muy bonito. O sea, es un taller que va a ser un día, ¿no? A una hora, ¿no?
Sí, pero yo creo que es
un poema así automático.
Simplemente voy a introducir el tema, dar ejemplos y luego, si sobra tiempo, hacerlo, y si no, pues luego voy a hacer una web con un website con la información para que cada uno se lo pueda hacer en su casa si quiere o tener la información ahí.
O sea, pero la idea es ponernos a escribir un poema. Con un
Después
cuadro.
de hacerlo, sí.
Vale.
Pero bueno, esto ya es muy complicado, depende de cuánto tarde cada uno.
No, pero sí, de escritura automática. Bueno, cada uno que haga como quiera, ¿no? Pero o sea, la idea es inspirarse en un cuadro para escribir un poema, ¿no?
Sí.
Eso es porque me decías, poesía efrástica.
Sí.
Y digo, me tiene que explicar Claudia. Eso ya me suena mucho, me suena a griego, pero ya no me acuerdo de lo que es. Es eso, inspirarse en un cuadro.
O sea, lo dicen mucho los modernistas, pero luego, últimamente, yo creo que no tanto. Los modernistas les encantaba, pero luego ya.
Pues sí, yo también lo hacía con los que estaban haciendo literatura comparada, y lo que hacía es decir, tenéis que escoger un cuadro o una canción y con eso escribir un poema.